Since finishing my year-long Wealth Magickal working, I've been reflecting on the lessons that I learned throughout that process. And notably, none of the lessons that I came up with have anything to do with being materially rich. So I wanted to share these with you today in case you were thinking of embarking on your own wealth magic journey. So the first lesson is that money does not equal wealth. And I guess this does depend on your definition of wealth, but having money in the bank doesn't necessarily make us rich in the sense of the quality of our lives. Now, I'm not going to say that having money doesn't make life easier, because clearly it does. And money can make us happy if we're able to buy the things that we want and pay for the experiences that we're passionate about. And if you've watched my other videos with the Financial Transformation book by Damon Brand, you will know that I was able to pay off my mortgage, which released a lot of pressure and has given me quite a bit of spare income. But weirdly, once the mortgage was paid off, life has gone back to being very ordinary. In fact, as soon as I walked out of the bank having paid off the mortgage, I think I almost expected that stepping back outside would feel hugely different and life would feel a lot more vibrant. But it was just amazingly ordinary, which is exactly how it should be, I guess. And so what it got me thinking about is, even though I no longer have a mortgage, even though I have more spare money, it makes me wealthier, I guess, if we're thinking about wealth purely in a material sense. But that doesn't mean to say I am wealthy in the quality of my life. And so I reflected on the things that I do have in my life that do make me wealthy, which brings me on to the second lesson, which is wealth is not about money. Wealth for me has become about gratitude. I feel very grateful to have the relationships that I have in my life. Of course, I'm grateful to have a roof over my head, a job that is as secure as any job will be, but it's a job that I generally enjoy doing, and I work with some really nice people. I have my health. Aside from my cancer diagnosis, I am well physically, and long may that continue. And I think this was hammered home by the fact that I'd been able to pay off my mortgage, which, by the way, came through the payout of an insurance policy, not by a lottery win or anything like that. But this emphasis on wealth not being about money was that paying off the mortgage, I am grateful for that, and it felt a relief to do that, but it didn't make me happy. What made me happy was seeing how life was so ordinary after that event, and really honing in on what I do have in my life to be grateful for. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't do wealth magic, but maybe what we need to be clear about when we do that magic is what we really want. Which brings me on to the next lesson, which is you don't want to be rich. You might start off doing wealth magic with the aim of wanting to win the lottery, wanting to buy a sports car, pay off your mortgage, whatever it is. But if you look into that goal with a bit more depth, you will find something more fundamental underneath that. So when I went into the wealth magic working, I did have in mind to be mortgage free. And mortgage free wasn't about having extra cash in my account every month. It was about freedom. It was about having the freedom, or more freedom, to do what I wanted. So the spare cash was more about that freedom and choice, not having to scrimp so much, not having to make choices between paying the mortgage versus having nice experiences. I had more of a choice to have the nice experiences. And now that I don't have a mortgage, I do have more freedom, and that is what I'm grateful for. My life has been enriched, if you like, by having that freedom. So when you're thinking about doing wealth magic, by all means have your goal, but then think about what is the deeper, more fundamental meaning behind this goal. What would it mean to me to have the sports car or win the lottery? Having a sports car is great, but what does that represent to you? Because actually it may not be the sports car you want. The fundamental meaning, the deeper meaning behind the sports car, you may be able to achieve that in other ways. The next lesson I learned through the wealth magic working was that insignificant opportunities can be life-changing. And what I mean by this is that things may present themselves to us in life, or we may think of something that doesn't seem very significant at the time, but if we choose to take the opportunity, it can be life-changing. And I mean, the example of this for me is that I wasn't going to put a claim in on my insurance policy when I was diagnosed with cancer, because all the documentation suggested that the insurance would not pay out. And I was aware that other people had tried to claim on their insurance for the cancer that I have, and they hadn't been successful. And I know that people are in different circumstances and they may be under different insurance companies, but I almost didn't put the claim in. And it's almost like that knife edge, isn't it? It could go either way. This choice, at the time, it didn't feel like a significant choice because I just assumed that it wouldn't happen. The claim would get rejected, and so there was no point. It's like that film Sliding Doors, if you're aware of that. I'm showing my age now, where the choices that we make or choose not to make can lead us down totally separate paths. And so the Wealth Magick working has helped me to be a bit more aware of the things that are presented to me. That may be a very significant thing later down the line. I suppose it's about being discerning about those opportunities when they come up and really thinking about them rather than dismissing them like I did, really thinking about whether this opportunity could change your life or what the potential outcomes could be, and giving yourself time to think it through. The next lesson is perhaps one of the most impactful that I've learned through Wealth Magick, and it is the tighter you grasp to the outcome, the less likely it is to happen. And this is my own belief, this is through my own personal experience. I cannot tell you how this works, what it is about this, but it was such a strong, visceral experience. I had a phone call from the insurance company that they left a message on my phone saying, "We're ringing you about your claim." I listened to the message and I thought, the likelihood is they're ringing to tell me the claim hasn't been accepted. And of course there was a hope there that they would accept it, but I was pretty much firmly on the thought process that they would not be accepting the claim. And when I look back on it, it was such a weird feeling. I said to myself, well, it doesn't matter. I will just carry on paying my mortgage and paying extra off the mortgage like I planned so that I can hopefully repay it earlier than when I retire. It was just not a thing I was grasping to. I didn't hear that message and think, I really hope that they pay the claim. I really need this right now. It wasn't like that at all. I just let go of the result. And even to the point of when I actually put in the claim, I didn't link it to my goal of being mortgage free at all. The two things didn't even marry up. And if I'm honest, the letting go aspect happened before that point. It happened when I restarted the book. So I had a period of time off where I didn't do any rituals because I was in recovery from my cancer treatment. And when I returned to the book, I was very conscious about the fact of saying to myself, I don't know what is going to happen with this magic. I'm just going to leave it open to the entities to do whatever they feel is appropriate. I have no idea where this is going to go, but I'm putting it out there and letting go of any outcome. I spent the next few months doing the rituals with no expectation of what might happen. And I really believe that there is something to that. If we grasp on tightly, like mentally, to a particular outcome of magic, I really think that gets in the way. I think when we step back and just put the magic out there and let it go to do what it needs to do, it will do what it needs to do in the time frame that it needs to do it. It may not be to the time frame we want, but something will happen from that. And I think maybe there's an element of trust that needs to happen in us that will happen. So if Wealth Magick is something that you want to do, just be aware, I believe anyway, that you will get far more from it than just material wealth. And I think the lessons that you can get from Wealth Magick have the ability to change your life forever. Let me know in the comments of any Wealth Magick workings that you've done and the lessons that you've learned from it. Take good care. I'll speak to you soon.